Thank you very much. We're going to move on to Eric Pritchard. Eric is a longtime industry lawyer who represents the electronic security providers across the U.S. He's a business lawyer focusing on emerging technology and industry acquisitions. He represents buyers and sellers both as a lawyer and a broker. He serves as our counsel at PPVAR, and I rely on him heavily for making sure I don't say or do the wrong thing as president of the partnership. Eric also serves on the Legal Affairs Committee of the Central Station Alarm Association and authors a monthly legal column for SD&I magazine. Eric, feel free to elaborate after we hit you up with the first question. Are there legal implications that we should be aware of with video verification?
I think there are. First, let me say, as a lawyer in the industry for close to 20 years, I'm very bullish on video verification. And the way I get there is I look at the players involved. So in my mind, we've got four parties at the table. We've got end users, we've got police, we've got insurers, and we've got the security industry. So from the end user's perspective, I think video is increasingly not just accepted as a way that we're going to provide security services, but expected. And I agree with John that, you know, as video has been introduced into the residential setting by, let's say, Comcast or the other cables or AT&T, and even though that video is only accessible right now for the most part by the subscriber, as we educate the subscriber, get that video available, they're going to have an expectation for it. If we can properly deploy the use of video back to the central station to verify residential alarms, I agree that will be commonplace. But so looking at the four players in my estimation about who are important here, end users are expecting it. The police want it because the police really do want to catch the bad guys. The insurance companies want it because they really do want to deter the bad guys. So in my mind, this is a huge opportunity for the industry. If you will, I think it's a bit of a perfect storm for us right now. I think we're in a position to really do something about this. And I think it's very important that we press forward. I'm a big believer in moving forward with technology in this industry. I saw an interesting statistic this week published by one of the camera manufacturers that showed that of the people buying cameras in the commercial sector, 53% of the buyers of those cameras were coming out of the IT world. Only 9% of those buyers were coming out of physical security. What that says to me is that we really need to push technology on the physical security side, or we're going to lose that market to the IT people, if you will, because we're not keeping up with the technology. So I'm very big on video verification. Now, 15 years ago, when video started becoming prevalent, everybody focused on it. The big bugaboo was privacy. And yes, there is a privacy concern, but we're talking about video verification of alarm condition. And as long as everybody's behaving, and I'll talk about behaving in a second, as long as everybody's behaving, I think we're fine dealing with the privacy issue. Now, what's the privacy issue? Simply stated, it is whether or not the subscriber, the person in the room, if you will, who's being videoed, has a reasonable expectation of privacy. I will take the case every time that somebody who doesn't belong in the premises has no reasonable expectation of privacy. All right, 99 times out of 100. I'll take that case. So I'm okay with that. I think if you're doing video work, video surveillance, other video, not video verification of alarms, you know, you need to deal with the privacy issue. The privacy issue is very sensible, very straightforward. Don't put cameras where they shouldn't be. That's really the whole issue. Just don't put cameras where they shouldn't be, and everybody knows where they shouldn't be. I think really if you follow the law, if you have a good contract, if you buy plenty of insurance, I'm a big believer of insurance, and you have sensible policies, those four things, sensible policies regarding the use of video, you'll be just fine, legally.
Good news. You answered two of my questions already. So on the contract issue, let's assume that all of us in the room can get right with the technology and how to sell it, how to install it. Is there anything specific free lawyer advice that you would give us on what we should do differently with our typical contract as it exists today?
If you're using a contract from the last century, and there are people in this room who are using contracts from the last century, you need to update your contract. You need to put in your contract exactly what it is you're going to do as part of video verification. What's the procedure, the protocol? What's going to happen? What's Central Station going to do in response to a video clip? And I try to deal with that in my forms of contract. The other thing you're going to want to do is you're going to make sure that you pull that service through into your risk allocation clauses. You've got the world's greatest exculpatory provision, which limits your liability to a stated sum of dollars, or if you've got the world's greatest indemnity provision, which says that if you're sued, the subscriber is going to indemnify you, basically take the case over and protect you, and you haven't included video verification as part of the service that's covered, I think you got real problems. So I think you revisit the contract. If you're using a contract from the first part of this century or last century, you go out and you buy yourself a new contract. There are a bunch of guys in the industry who sell them. None of them are as nice as me, but you know, they're not that expensive. They're a few $100, and I think that's the way that you deal with it.
Great. This is a question that just came to my mind. What would you say, Eric, in terms of what kind of legal pitfalls or risks that we undertake as a result of our operators now having to apply their judgment to what they're seeing on the video?
Yeah, it's an important issue. And by the way, stepping back from that for a second, what I heard come out of the last panel, who were mostly people not in our industry, was they're asking for us to create a standard to follow. And I think that's really important. I think it's important to have this dialogue. I think there are a lot of issues. PPVAR is, fairly new. We've been at this a couple of years now. I think there are a lot of issues that need to be talked about. So I commend PPVAR for the forum, and I think we need to keep talking about this stuff because we need to figure out exactly how it's going to work. Now, what I do on my contract, Don, is I try to make it just like we do on the monitoring side, the digital monitoring side. What I try to do is I try to give the person who's looking at the video the discretion to figure out whether or not police should be dispatched. And I think that's very important. So if I'm doing a video verification type of contract, I'm going to give Central Station operators a great deal of latitude and discretion in figuring out what it is they're supposed to do. And I think that gets you 98% of the way there in a lawsuit. I think that's very helpful.
Very helpful, very relative. Actually, my last question was, Eric, what's the bottom line legally with trying to get into this space? Is there anything that anyone in the room can benefit from?
I think that people need to move towards video verification. I think that it's a selling advantage, an opportunity to increase your RMR. The risk can be dealt with intelligently, and I think down the road the question ultimately is going to become whether or not you're making a mistake legally by not offering a video to your subscriber. If the industry is moving towards the increased use of video, will we at some point, if you're not offering video, will you be breaching the standard of care? That to me is one of the interesting questions.
Excellent, excellent. Appreciate the feedback, Eric.